A teenager and her mother switch bodies, allowing them to see the world from each other's point of view. Listen as we chat about not evil step-parents, getting an A in Gong 101, and an objectively wrong subjective opinion. Then we find out if 2003's Freaky Friday stands the test of time.
Test of time, James and Alan have their say. Do the movies you love still hold up today? James says gladiator with a glut, and Alan says as a father blah blah. It's the test of time, James and Alan have their say. Do the movies you love still hold up today? Test of time, James and Alan have their say. Do the movies you love still hold up today?
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Test of Time. I'm James Brief, but in Alan Noah's body, because we switched from fortune cookies, I guess, and you're James Brief's body, but Alan Noah inside, I guess?
Yes, I'm Alan Noah in James Brief's body. Hello, everyone. I'm the director of this podcast, and welcome to the Test of Time.
So, what exactly do you do as director?
I just hit one button that just says direct and upload, and that's it, right?
No, that's not it at all.
Oh, I know.
Yeah?
You use AI.
No, I don't use AI. I probably should, honestly. But no, I am Alan Noah in my own body. You are James Brief in your body. I'm excited to talk about Freaky Friday. But before we get into that, I want to take a couple minutes and talk about Superman, the new James Gunn movie. I saw it opening weekend. You were away at camp for a while, but we can finally talk about it because you saw it. I'll let you go first, but I just want to say I loved it. What did you think?
This was the first film, a superhero film, as it were, that I've walked out of since Endgame, that I walked out and I was like, oh, that was really fun. That was entertaining. And I'm glad I spent, I went with my girlfriend and it's pretty much like $50. I'm like, that was a fun 2.5 hours or so.
Was that $50, meaning $25 a ticket as just regular Manhattan prices, or did you see it in IMAX or something?
I picked a closed captioning movie.
Oh.
Which is kind of weird if I paid extra for that. Maybe that's it, but also, it's Manhattan.
I asked because the closest IMAX theater is maybe 20, 30 minutes away from here. I said, fuck it. For Superman, we're going to the IMAX theater. We never go all the way out there because it's a pain in the ass, but for Superman, I really, really wanted to see it in IMAX. I'm glad that we did. I'm just going to say spoiler warning. I don't know how many spoilers we'll talk about, but just in case, if you haven't seen it yet, skip ahead. The reason I loved this movie so much was because it made Superman relatable. And I think that's a very, very hard thing to do with this guy who is effectively a god and mostly invulnerable. And the way that James Gunn made him relatable is that he's trying to figure it out. He wants to do the right thing, and sometimes that's easy, and sometimes it's not. And he was struggling to figure out what is the right thing to do, and I really felt like that's the way in with this character, especially after the Henry Cavill movies, which were so dark and so brooding and so much about punching. Punching's fine. I'm okay with some punching in a superhero movie, of course, but I just liked getting to know this Superman, this Clark Kent. I found the way that James Gunn wrote him and directed him to be just fascinating and captivating.
I agree, especially what you're saying with the comparisons to Henry Cavill. I kind of like that they've toned down Superman's power in this particular iteration of Superman. For example, in the Henry Cavill the Superman, one of the versions of Justice League was essentially everyone gets their ass kicked until Superman comes, and it's basically one punch and he beats Steppenwolf.
Right.
That Superman was a little bit overpowered for my tastes and a little bit unrelatable, because then you can't have a good villain. I like that they established from literally the opening scene and the opening text that this Superman can lose. And
yeah.
I think Lex Luthor was fantastic.
Agreed.
Nicholas Hoult. Am I saying his name correctly?
I think so. He was great. I love Rachel Brosnahan as Lois Lane. I would have liked to have seen more of Lois. I really enjoyed that character. I did appreciate the fact that they didn't waste time with the origin story. They didn't waste time with the secret identity. They didn't waste time with the love triangle between Clark and Superman and Lois, which is fine because we've seen all of that before. And even if you're a kid and this is the first Superman movie that you've ever seen and you haven't seen all of those other things done to death in other movies or TV shows or comic books, it doesn't matter. You get it. And exploring who Superman is, exploring what Lois Lane is going to ask of him as a reporter. I think the movie also does a good job of showing the importance of journalism, which one could say that's preachy or whatever, but also the two main characters work at a newspaper. So journalism should be a part of that story. And I don't know, it didn't feel like shoehorned. It felt like important and relevant to the story and also the world that we live in now.
Right. And I think also you have to give a shout out to David Cornsworth. I'm just going to say Mr. because Mr. Terrific, played by Mr. Gathegi, because I don't want to mispronounce his first name. But he was fantastic.
He was terrific.
He was terrific. He is. Guy Gardner. I can't believe they kept the 90s haircut. And apparently Nathan Fillion insisted on it. I definitely heard that Hawk Girl was in it. But I like the side characters. Yeah, I thought that they were pretty good.
I like them. I mean, honestly, they all pale in comparison to the best super friend of all, Crypto, who is just such a good boy, even though he's not. He's actually a very bad boy. Also, kind of speaking to how they made Superman relatable, he can't control his dog. I mean, as a guy who has two insane dogs, that's very relatable. You can be the strongest man in the universe, and the dog won't listen to you because it's a dog.
Yeah, in this film, there really is this idea of what would really be the fallout if some random guy just decides, not by any Democratic or UN or anything, but one guy alone gets to decide, yeah, we know Superman's a good guy, but what if he wasn't? That's really kind of a bad thing. And it does at least explore that. And I think it's a really interesting conversation that Lois Lane has with Clark Kent as Superman. A very good scene because,
yes,
he's dressed as Clark Kent. We've never seen that before.
Right. And kind of talking about the political aspect of it, I was thinking they kind of waded into this territory in Superman 4, The Quest for Peace. Obviously, that movie's execution was god-awful. The way that this movie handled it was far more intelligent and well thought out and just better in every way. We don't have to spend a lot of time on this, but I do feel like this movie is too woke criticism. I think this movie is the perfect amount of woke. It is woke, if woke means what it really should mean, which is treating people with kindness and empathy. Yeah, that is what this Superman is all about. That's not a bad thing. If you watch this movie and think that there's too much kindness and empathy in it, I think that says more about you than it says about the movie, quite frankly. And this idea that Superman says, and obviously it comes from James Gunn, but in a world where it's so easy to be so cruel, being nice and being thoughtful and thinking of others, that is the most punk rock thing of all. I love that line. I love that sentiment. And I think that's really why the movie stuck with me.
And the end of the film, which is such a great ending scene, is actually a song called Punk Rocker with Iggy Pop.
There's also a song called The Mighty Crabjoys Theme, performed by the Mighty Crabjoys, which is the punk band that Clark Kent really likes. That is not real. That is a James Gunn creation. That is very much the kind of thing James Gunn does. He's obsessed with music. I love that was kind of like a running gag. When you see him in his boyhood room in Smallville, there's a Mighty Crabjoys poster on the wall. That's just the level of detail that James Gunn is great at. But let's talk about Freaky Friday. We're talking about this movie because there's a Lego sequel, Freakier Friday, 22 years after the first one came out, or this one. I mean, this was not the first Freaky Friday. There was a Jodie Foster version and then several made for TV versions after the Jodie Foster one and before the Lindsay Lohan one and then after the Lindsay Lohan one. But we're just going to talk about the 2003 version because that's the one that's getting the sequel. And for anyone who hasn't seen it, it's about high schooler Anna and her overworked mother, Tess. Tess lectures Anna about her grades, friends, and rock band. Anna resents the fact that her mom is getting remarried 3 years after the death of her father. During an intense fight at a Chinese restaurant, Anna and Tess are given a mysterious fortune cookie, which causes them to wake up in each other's bodies. With their bodies swapped, they're forced to live a day, a Freaky Friday, in fact, in the other's shoes. Tess thinks that a day in high school will be a breeze, but is quickly proven wrong. Anna gives her mom a makeover before contending with therapy patients and wedding planning. In the end, Anna and Tess gain a deeper understanding of each other, and after a selfless act of love, they switch back to their own bodies. So I guess this must have been profitable because they're making a sequel. I mean, it took them 22 years, or did it not make that much money, and that's why it took 22 years?
Oh boy, did it make money.
Okay.
It had a pretty sizable budget at the time. It had a $26 million budget. It was released on August 6, 2003, and it opened at number 2 with $22 million. However, Freaky Friday ended up with $110 million domestically. So it's interesting that obviously, the staying power was very big. So, that this was a huge hit. And this launched, I think it's easy to say that Mean Girls launched Lindsay Lohan into the stratosphere, basically from child star into, oh, wow, we can market this girl as like she can act, and she's a good actress and she can act in anything, and not just, a remake or something. Also, she had done a remake of another very successful Disney product, The
Parent Trap.
The Parent Trap, right.
Yeah. But then she was in Herbie: Fully Loaded, which bombed. And that hurt her career.
Right. I'm guessing that probably had to do with like a Disney contract, and she did a couple Disney films in a row. And then, she's helped revive these two properties. Let's help her revive Herbie, because that's a great, once you revive Herbie, it can spin off in a million directions. And they've tried it a couple times, but and I'm sure they will try again. But,
sure.
It's interesting. The original casting, which is an obvious piece of casting, was they originally wanted to give the mother role to Jodie Foster.
Right. Making this movie a sequel to the one before it.
But she declined because she didn't actually want the gimmick of putting her in there overshadowing the movie. What an amazing gift she gave, because I think for a lot of people, when you think Freakier Friday, you think, oh, that's the Lindsay Lohan film.
Yeah.
And if Jodie Foster were in it, I really think all the hype around it would not be, wow, it's this young lady. Remember her from Parent Trap? She's all grown up and she's in her first, now she's 16 or 17. It's just pretty amazing that Jodie Foster did not overshadow this, because I don't remember it anyway. I'm sure she did press about it, but I don't think Jamie Lee Curtis was the big hype about this film.
Kind of along those lines, Lindsay Lohan and Jamie Lee Curtis really get to do something relatively unique in this movie where they're playing two different characters. And this is the kind of thing that it's easy to imagine that actors would really like, the opportunity to play a kid and a parent version of a kid, and to do these two different roles and kind of impersonate each other. And I don't think it's a particularly hot take to say that Jamie Lee Curtis is an amazing actress. I think that she kills it in this movie when she's Anna. I mean, also when she's Tess, but when she is embodying a teenage girl in her body, there's just inherent comedy in that. And Jamie Lee Curtis nails it. Also, I think Lindsay Lohan nails it when she's playing her mom in her body. I think that these are fun acting exercises or difficult acting challenges, depending on how you look at it. But I was really blown away by just how great both of them were. I really thought both of them were just phenomenal in their dual roles.
Yeah, watching this film, it reminded me of when we watched Mean Girls, and it just reminded me that yeah, Lindsay Lohan, she's a fantastic actress, and Mark Harmon, he's great in this film. I think for 90% of the film, he is generic good guy stepfather, as opposed to like bad guy stepfather in other films. But there is a speech he says at the very end. Basically, he tells the actress Jamie Lee Curtis, who he thinks is Tess the mom. He tells her what he really thinks about Anna, the daughter. And it's, of course, very heartfelt because, of course, he doesn't think that Anna's hearing it. That would not have been delivered well by a lesser actor.
I totally agree. I think that it would have been very easy for this movie to go down the wicked step parent route, and that is a cliche and that's a trope. I think that is in Parent Trap, if I'm remembering right. Look, I'm biased. I have two step parents, neither of whom are evil, and so just kind of going that way is eye roll worthy. Come on. I do like that this guy is a good guy. That said, I wasn't convinced that he was a good guy at the point in the movie where he ambushes his fiance with a surprise live television appearance. He justifies it by saying, I know you get nervous, so I didn't want to tell you, so now you just kind of have to do it, which is horrible reasoning. That does not make sense. If you know somebody is nervous about being on TV, about being in front of people, just springing it on them last minute is not going to reduce their anxiety. It's going to make it so much worse. And I was like, who the fuck is this guy? Why is he doing that?
That was not appropriate for him to do until he ambushes her. Either this happened off screen, or we needed to hear at one little part earlier in the film at breakfast or something that Tess is really stressed because she really wants to promote the film and what she would give to get on television. And then boom, he could surprise her because at the last second an opening came up and then she can't say no because obviously she said yes an hour earlier that she would want to do anything. I was thinking the same thing. This is supposed to be the good guy. He wouldn't have done something like that. So that's my headcanon, that Tess really wanted to be on television. So he, of course, would push the Jamie Lee Curtis body onto television because that's what she's been talking about for weeks.
Yeah, it still feels shitty. Also, is he like her publicist or something, or her book manager? That's implied, but they never really say that. And I feel like an extra line of dialogue maybe would have helped with that.
You're right.
While we're talking about the male love interests, I guess we should talk about Chad Michael Murray. I never got it with him. I worked on a VH1 show about teen idols the year this movie came out in 2003. I know that girls were obsessed with him. He was oh so dreamy. I guess he's good looking, but I just found his character and his acting and his hair, all of it to just be so cookie cutter teen heartthrob. Like if you asked AI to create the perfect early 2000s heartthrob, this is what you'd get. And okay, whatever.
I was watching the film with my girlfriend and she saw him and she said the same thing, that she wasn't into him.
Or was she just saying that so you didn't feel insecure?
No. I know which celebrities that she's into. But
okay.
Yeah. But you're right. She's not into that because he is generally generic. But you mentioned the word, it's his hair. It's generically dreamboaty, like heartthrob and kind of rocker that would go on the motorcycle. It's basically most of his acting is that hair.
I guess I'd also like to believe that maybe he's a heartthrob because he has 3 first names, says Alan Michael Noah.
Maybe, but I mean, once in a while, there's just basically a harmless actor or actress that just, they're not very good at the craft of acting necessarily. And I'm only judging it from this film. I think maybe I've seen him in passing in other films, but I'm only judging for this film. I didn't think it was bad. It wasn't particularly great. Of course, next to Academy Award winner Jamie Lee Curtis and everyone else.
Sure. I do also just want to give a little credit to Ryan Malgarini, who plays Harry, the little brother, kind of along the lines of, it would be easy to make the stepfather evil. It would be easy to make the little brother just an evil little pest. And he is that in the beginning, But then maybe halfway through the movie, you find out that he really loves his sister, and the fighting is just kind of their love language. They don't use that phrase, but that's just how they connect. And he's a really sweet kid. And that made me like him even more, not just from that point forward, but also kind of like retcon back to the beginning of the movie, even when he was being annoying. I'm like, oh, now I like him. Now he's a charming little brother. He's a stinker, but it's fine. He's a cute little kid.
Yeah, and I actually like the way they presented that. It wasn't something trite like Jamie Lee Curtis as the daughter walks in on the brother praying at night and talking out loud his thoughts about how good his sister is. And as the kid, of course, you don't necessarily think your mom is going to necessarily see an essay, which obviously the essay was probably like write about someone that you really admire. And, you know, it's a generic little second grade task that you have to do. But he picked his big sister, who, you know, when you have one older sister, an older sibling, you probably do admire him.
His handwriting was amazing, by the way,
Better than
for like
mine
a second
today.
grader.
Right.
There are a couple of test of time things that are worth mentioning. One is all of Tess's many devices and phones and beepers, and she's got the wired headset, and in a way that does stand the test of time, but also not really, because she has 6, and now you really just need 1. She's a therapist, and I do think that the movie is kind of mocking therapy in a way that was kind of a trend in the late 90s, early 2000s, and I think now there's just more respect for the profession. Mental health is health. Therapy is not a joke. People who go to therapy should not be mocked simply because they are in therapy. But the number one thing about this movie that doesn't stand the test of time is the racism. The Asian mysticism, the way that they switch with this fortune cookie. I mean, come on. It's such a shitty trope. When we talked about Big Trouble in Little China, you know, we were talking about how that movie kind of inverted some of those cliches and tropes. And here you have this movie a couple decades later that's just like, no, fuck it. We're going for all these racist tropes. I mean, the use of the gong, especially, God, they really, really overdo it.
Don't you ever mock the gong or disrespect the gong? I played the gong in college.
What?
Yes, I took a course, an Indonesian music course called gamelan.
It would have been much funnier if it was Gong 101.
But we had a concert in the quad at the end of the semester, and I got an A or an A plus in that course. So don't disrespect the gong.
No, I'm saying that it should be respected and not used to signify, hey, something Asian is happening. I'm saying it because I do respect the gong.
Damn straight respect the gong. You know, I have to say, honestly, I just didn't really look into the that racist trope there. Of course, they were Asian. I thought the fortune cookie was more stupid than racist. To be honest, I rolled my eyes at the fortune cookie. Yes, now that you bring it up, I go. But also, you know, I think that these 2 Asian ladies have discovered the secret to immortality, essentially. Just when you reach old age, find a young person, switch bodies with them, and then boom, you're a young person again. That's one of those larger themes of the film that I'm sure will not be touched on in Freaker Friday.
I don't know about that because the woman who plays Pei Pei is in the sequel. I don't really know a ton about the sequel, but I did see a lot of the cast members are returning, including her. Cool. I'm glad she gets a paycheck and she gets to come back for the sequel. But I do wonder how they're going to address that because it seems like they should.
Here's my guess, and I think this would be clever, is she would only make a cameo and it's a fake out. That you think that's going to be the thing and it's not. And that's something else that switches them.
Could be. I want to unpack the music in this movie. The soundtrack is a pop punk soundtrack. That's cool. That's of the time, certainly. The way that they handle it, though, they do screw up quite a bit. Early in the movie, when Anna's talking to Jake, the Chad Michael Murray character, they're talking about their love of the Hives. They really like the Hives. Anna loves the Hives. Later in the movie, she says that she doesn't like the White Stripes because they don't have a bassist. Now, that's a fucking hot take to say that you love the Hives and you hate the White Stripes. For a subjective opinion, that is objectively wrong. And also, it doesn't stand the test of time because what have the Hives done since 2003? The White Stripes are no longer active, but I think they are much more beloved and appreciated now than the Hives ever were.
That's fair, but she's also talking giggly to the boy that she's absolutely in love with. And
Sure.
so she's absolutely going to just like agree with him, whatever he says, to an extent, so she might just be saying things.
Yeah, they name check the Yeah Yeah Yeahs and the Vines and the Breeders. The Yeah Yeah Yeahs and the Breeders have stood the test of time more so than the Vines. The soundtrack is really loaded with not just pop punk, but a lot of covers. There's Simple Plan doing Happy Together. There's Joey Ramone's What a Wonderful World. There's Bowling for Soup's cover of Baby One More Time. There's a theory about this that when Jake is talking about that awesome cover of Baby One More Time, in the script, they probably wanted to use the Fountains of Wayne cover of Baby One More Time, but then maybe they couldn't get the rights to it. So then they had Bowling for Soup do their cover of Baby One More Time for the movie, which is nowhere near as good as a Fountains of Wayne cover. But whatever. Early in the movie, when Anna does the makeover for her mom in her mom's body, Tess looks at herself and says, "Oh my God, I look like Stevie Nicks." And then Anna says, "Who's he?" Which is a funny joke. Haha, she doesn't know who Stevie Nicks is. She's a kid. Why would she know who Stevie Nicks is? But then, later in the movie, Tess doesn't know who Keith Richards is, and Anna does. So if Anna is so into music that she knows about Keith Richards, cool. Wouldn't she also then know about Stevie Nicks? Maybe not, because Keith Richards is a guitarist and she plays guitar. There's just like some weird inconsistencies with the music and how they talk about music. That said, the song Ultimate that the band does at the end credits, that's on the soundtrack credited to Lindsay Lohan, that's a banger. That is a damn good song.
I was surprised it wasn't a bigger hit, actually. I do remember she had a bunch of like singles out, but this was not one of them that would play on like Z100 or something.
There was a video that ran on the Disney Channel. I think Lindsay Lohan's biggest single was Rumors. I'm sick of rumors started. I'm sick of being followed. The song from this movie is way better than Rumors. Way better.
I agree. Yeah, it's got good guitar. And speaking of which, I think that the song that they chose for the climax was very important. That actually, the music had to really build up and have this almost cathartic release when the guitar solo was so successful. And this song "Take Me Away" by Christina Vidal, originally by this Australian punk band Lash, I think it's a perfect song that they picked because they probably went through a dozen songs or more, but it was a good guitar solo that needed to be done for that, and I liked it.
Yeah, there's that big concert or the rock audition at the end. Then they go back to the wedding rehearsal, which, by the way, that's a rehearsal dinner? It looks like a fucking wedding. That is a big, expensive production. Rehearsal dinners are often smaller affairs, but this is like, at the top of a skyscraper. It's a formal dinner with, white linen tablecloth, 100+ people. This is one hell of a rehearsal dinner. But in order to switch bodies back, they have to have a selfless act of love. Anna, as Tess, gives a speech about why she's getting remarried or why her mom is getting remarried. And it's about she misses the dad who died and he was great, but now we're a family again and we never thought we could be so happy again. It's sweet, but I feel like the movie is kind of playing with that as a quote unquote reveal that this is what the tension has been between Anna and Tess the whole movie. And it's not a surprise. We know that the dad is dead. We know that Anna is unhappy that her mom's getting remarried. Yeah, it's because she's still sad about her dad. I mean, like, none of it is wrong. but it's also just not shocking. And I feel like the movie was kind of playing it as like, we need to talk about whatever it is that you're mad at, says Tess, the therapist, who doesn't understand that that's so obviously what her daughter is mad about. Like, I felt like that was a little anticlimactic, just that it was so obvious.
I actually thought the movie should have told us that the father died a lot earlier. I thought maybe they were divorced and she was just pissed off about that. And the dad, maybe he's one of these guys and he ran out on us, but I guess he probably still loves you. Who knows? I don't know why you left. And then they reveal it was a death.
So the speech that Anna gives as Tess, that is her selfless act of love, and that's when they switch back. But what's Tess's selfless act of love? I have two conflicting theories, but I want to get your take on it.
Oh wait. So I gotta think which actress.
This would be what Lindsay Lohan did as her mom. It's really Tess, but it's in Anna's body.
Oh, I think it's what she says at the beginning of the rehearsal dinner when she leaves. Doesn't she say something along the lines of how proud she is, or something about how she should go?
Maybe, but it's really Ryan, the fiance, who lets her go. So I think that it could be when Tess in Anna's body says, we need to postpone the wedding, in part because we're in switched bodies, but also because you're not ready. You are not ready for me to get remarried. Therefore, please tell him we need to delay the wedding. So I think that's her selfless act of love. But I'm not 100% sure, because I thought maybe it would be something to do with the concert, the audition at the scene before. That's what's really important to Anna. The wedding's what's really important to Tess. So I thought it was going to have something to do with the concert. But really, when you think about it, it's still Anna who's doing the selfless act at the concert, because all Tess is doing is just going on stage and jumping around. Okay, maybe she has a fear of being in front of a crowd, but still, that's not that hard of a thing to do.
Well, I think the other thing that could be the selfless act is when they have their come together moment, when she talks about her dad, the mom in Lindsay Lohan's body is saying that she's willing to postpone or even cancel the wedding to make her daughter happy.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Do you think it's that?
Yeah, I think that's got to be. I mean, you're right. It's not as obvious because, you basically have this speech that's a little more like, I'm saying the lesson I learned in the speech. But you're right. The mom's selfless act is a little bit harder to pinpoint.
Yeah, I think so. But James, let me ask you about the movie as a whole. Do you think the 2003 Freaky Friday stands the test of time?
Yes, I do. I think it's a very well acted film. I think it gets to the point very quickly. I think that they avoided some tropes that I thought they were going to do, and they didn't, which I liked. I didn't find Chad Michael Murray offensive in any way. I just thought he was pretty generic, but I thought he was perfectly fine for the role that they needed. His character did not need to be very deep. I thought Stephen Tobolowsky, he was good as Mr. Bates. Because I also think that was a good scene. That allowed Lindsay Lohan. She was she acted very well there. I kind of believed her as the mom in that scene. All the actors and actresses, I don't know their names. I thought really the side characters, the other women in the rock band, I thought were that they had a charisma that you needed for that role. It was charming. Yeah, I think it's a perfectly fine kids film. So yeah, Freaky Friday stands the test of time. What do you think, Al? Stand the test of time? Yay or nay?
I very much enjoyed this movie. I watched it with my daughter. She's 11. I think she really enjoyed it. She got a kick out of it. She said that she would totally go to see the sequel, which I think is a good sign. There are some things that I don't love about it, mainly the Asian racism. The line that Tess says at the very beginning of the movie before they switch, when she drops Anna off at school, she says, "Make good choices." And Anna just is like, "Ugh," and rolls her eyes. I thought that was really, really funny. There were quite a few things that I thought were especially funny as a father. One thing that as a father I really didn't like is when Tess takes her daughter's door, then Anna says, "You better give me back my door or I'll kill myself." I get it. Teenagers say that. That's a real thing. But in this very lighthearted Disney movie, nah, don't do that. Don't include a line like that. Don't even introduce that as a concept, I think. There's a lot of sped up footage, which I generally don't like. And I didn't love it in this movie. I think it's just overused. I get it. Things are hectic. Sure. I did laugh when Anna says, "Oh, snap," meaning, "Oh, that's good," just because I haven't heard anyone say that in 20 plus years. Oh, this is also just totally random. Jake works at the school, apparently, when he's like, "Oh, I can let you into the teacher's lounge. I work here." It's like, no, you don't work there. You go to school there. Kids who work at a school don't also work at a school. What?
And he literally says the exact same line about 10 minutes later when Jamie Lee Curtis goes into the coffee shop and she goes, "What, Jake?" And he goes, "I work here."
If you're going to say that this kid, Jake, he works 2 jobs because he's just so dedicated, or he has to, or he's supporting his family or whatever, cool. That could be admirable. Also, though, he's really just stalking Tess / Anna. He crashes the rehearsal dinner. He crashes the wedding. What the hell? The love triangle with him also I found just inappropriate and creepy and dumb. Like, I don't think the movie needs it. I get it. I understand that they just wanted to have as much Chad Michael Murray in the movie as possible. And it's not really a love triangle, but it's creepy. And Tess makes it a point to say to Anna, who's in Tess's body, "Do not kiss Ryan," because that's creepy as hell. You know, he thinks he's kissing his adult fiance, but no, it's really the mind of this kid. In the same way, it's also creepy the other way with Tess and Jake, and she does kiss him in Anna's body, but that's still creepy and not necessary. I really just hate all of that. But I think that overall the themes of the movie about family and connection and understanding your loved ones, understanding your parents, understanding your kids, understanding in general, just across generations, treating each other with grace and patience. You know, the mom doesn't believe her daughter when she says that the teacher's out to get me. And then she finds out, no, the teacher really is out to get her. And Anna thinks that being her mom is perfect and her life is utopia. And then she finds out, no, it really isn't. I think that that sentiment is completely timeless. And so I will say that, yes, the movie does stand the test of time.
So even if we did switch bodies for this podcast, it would still be a 2 for 2.
That's true. That is a very good point. But that's going to do it for us this week. Next week, we are going to be talking about the Rocky Horror Picture Show. That movie is turning 50. We've never done it on the podcast, and we've got to. So that'll be a good time. I'm looking forward to that episode and that conversation. Until then, we want to hear from you. We are at Test of Time Pod on Facebook, X, Instagram, and Threads. You can email us at thetestoftimepodcast@gmail.com. You can find all of our old episodes at testoftimepod.com. And we'll see you next time, everybody.
Bye.